Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Open Schooling and Skill Education Sikkim. None of the children have joined us yet, but let's begin. So I won't do the direct and indirect speech today. I'd like to do it when some children have joined the class. And so let's start with this chapter number 18, The Little Prince. Okay. So this chapter is The Little Prince. And this is an excerpt from the book The Little Prince, written by Antonio de Saint-Exupéry. The book was published on April 6, 1943. And Saint-Exupéry, born June 1900 till July 1944, he was an adventurous pilot and lyrical poet. He was an aviation pilot who served his country during World War II. During his service, he fell in love with writing and wrote some award-winning pieces. He won several of France's highest literary awards and even won the United States National Book Award. He's best remembered for The Little Prince, Wind, Sand, and Stars, and Night Flight. Okay, so let's begin with, these are the objectives of the lesson. Understand the meaning of life through the journey of the Little Prince. Understand short theme-based passages. Answer questions on these passages. Learn vocabulary and will be able to do basic grammar-related questions. The first section of this chapter starts with the journey of the Little Prince, who meets the pilot, who is also the narrator of this book. The Little Prince is a curious fellow who asks the pilot a number of questions. Nonetheless, the pilot seems uninterested to respond. This chapter will give you the beginning of the Little Prince's expedition. From here on, he explores a lot of planets and meets unusual people. On the fifth day, again as always, it was thanks to the sheep the secret of the Little Prince's life was revealed to me. Abruptly, without anything to lead up to it, and as if the question had been born of long and silent meditation on his problem, he demanded, "A sheep, if he eats little bushes, does it eat flowers too?" "A sheep," I answered, "eats anything it finds in its reach." "Even flowers that have thorns?" "Yes, even flowers that have thorns." "Then the thorns, what use are they?" I did not know. At that moment, I was very busy trying to unscrew a bolt that had got stuck in my engine. I was very much worried, for it was becoming clear to me that the breakdown of my plane was extremely serious, and I had so little drinking water left that I had to fear for the worst. The thorns, what use are they? The Little Prince never let go of a question once he had asked it. As for me, I was upset over the bolt, and I answered with the first thing that came into my head: the thorns are of no use at all. Flowers have thorns just for spite. Oh, there was a moment of complete silence, and the Little Prince flashed back at me with a kind of resentfulness. Like, you're resentful when you're upset about something. Okay? "I don't believe you. Flowers are weak creatures. They are naive. They reassure themselves as best as they can. They believe that their thorns are terrible weapons." I did not answer. At that instant, I was saying to myself, if this bolt still won't turn, I'm going to knock it out with the hammer. Again, the Little Prince disturbed my thoughts. "And you actually believe that the flowers—" "No, oh no," I cried. No, I don't believe anything. I answered you with the first thing that came into my head. Don't you see I'm very busy with matters of consequence?" What is the meaning of matters of consequence? like important matters, matters which have serious implications. Okay? He stared at me, thunderstruck. Matters of consequence? He looked at me there with my hammer in my hand, my fingers black with engine grease, bending down over an object which seemed to him extremely ugly. You talk just like the grown-ups. That made me a little ashamed. But he went on relentlessly. What is the meaning of relentlessly? Not giving up. You mix everything up together. You confuse everything. He was really very angry. He tossed his golden curls in the breeze, like he must be having like golden colored hair and, which is slightly wavy like that. I know a planet where there's a certain red-faced gentleman. He has never smelled a flower. He has never looked at a star. He has never loved anyone. He has never done anything in his life but add up figures. And all day he says over and over, just like you, I'm busy with matters of consequence. And that makes him swell up with pride. But he's not a man. He is a mushroom. A what? A mushroom? The little prince was now white with rage. The flowers have been growing thorns for millions of years. For millions of years, the sheep have been eating them just the same. And it is not a matter of consequence to try to understand why the flowers go to so much trouble to grow thorns which are never of any use to them. Is the warfare between the sheep and the flowers not important? Is this not of more consequence than a fat, red-faced gentleman's sons? And if I know, I myself, one flower which is unique in the world, which grows nowhere but on my planet, but which one little sheep can destroy in a single bite some morning without even noticing what he's doing. Oh, you think that is not important? His face turned from white to red as he continued. If someone loves a flower, of which just one single blossom grows in all the millions and millions of stars, it is enough to make him happy just to look at the stars. He can say to himself, somewhere my flower is there. But if the sheep eats the flower in one moment, all his stars will be darkened. And do you think it is not important? He could not say anything more. His words were choked by sobbing. The night had fallen. I had let my tools drop from my hands. Of what moment now was my hammer, my bolt, my thirst, or death? On one star, my planet, the Earth, there was a little prince to be confronted. I took him in my arms and rocked him. I said to him, the flower that you love is not in danger. I will draw you a muzzle for your sheep. I will draw you a railing to put around your flower. I didn't know what to say to him. I felt awkward and blundering. I did not know how I could reach him, where I could overtake him and go on hand in hand with him once more. It's such a secret place, the land of tears. Like sometimes when one person is really sad, so we can't think of the right words to say to them. Like we just don't know what to say that will make things any better, right? So now understand this text simply. This starts with the conversation the narrator is having with the little prince. The little prince is a curious fellow and wanted to know about everything: flowers, thorns, and sheep. However, the narrator doesn't seem interested in answering any of the questions. He reluctantly responds, but just to keep him quiet. The little prince further asks questions, but that just annoys the narrator and he doesn't answer. Not being able to get answers to his question, the little prince gets sad and starts crying. You know what a muzzle is, right? So let me read the sentence again and then I'll explain. I will draw you a muzzle for your sheep. Like sometimes when our pets, dogs are unwell, so we put a muzzle over their face that, they're not picking up anything to eat and random stuff. And there are some of these difficult words. Blundering, blunder. Blunder is a mistake that you make, some which embarrasses you. It's a biggish mistake. It's a blunder. Okay. So now here you have to put in articles. You know what the articles are: a, and. Now I have dash blue bag. So the article that you put here is I have a blue bag. All right. And you use "and" before words which begin with A, E, I, O, U, the vowels, or they have a vowel sound, which is why when the sentence is, "I'll see you in dash hour," so we write "an," even though the hours begins with NH. And so, but we will still write "an" because of the vowel sound. It says "an hour." It doesn't say how, like the sound isn't her, right? So now these are some exercises where you have to put in the correct form of the tenses. Um, so it's contrary to etiquette to yawn in the presence of a king. The monarch said to him, "I forbid you to do so." "I can't help it. I can't stop myself," replied the little prince, thoroughly embarrassed. "I've come on a long journey and I've had no sleep." "Ah, then," the king said, "I order you to yawn. It's years since I've seen anyone yawning. Yawns to me are objects of curiosity. Come now, yawn again. It's an order." "That frightens me. I cannot any more," murmured the little prince, now completely abashed. "Hmm," replied the king. "Then I order you sometimes to yawn and sometimes to—" He sputtered a little and seemed vexed, for what the king fundamentally insisted upon was that his authority should be respected. He tolerated no disobedience. He was an absolute monarch. Absolute monarch means that people who, like a monarch, a king, who gives no value or importance to anyone else's opinion. But because he was a very good man, he made his orders reasonable. If I ordered a general, he would say, by way of example, if I ordered a general to change himself into a seabird, and if the general did not obey me, then that would not be the fault of the general. It would be my fault. "May I sit down?" came now a timid inquiry from the little prince. "I order you to do so," the king answered him, and majestically gathered in a fold of his ermine mantle. But the little prince was wondering. Okay. So, section 4 here. I soon learned to know the flower better. On the little prince's planet, the flowers had always been very simple. They had only one ring of petals. They took up no room at all. They were, they were a trouble to nobody. Okay. But when the shrub, that new shrub that soon stopped growing and began to get ready to produce a flower, the little prince, who was present at the first appearance of a huge bud, felt at once that some sort of miraculous ap- apparition must emerge from it. Something that comes out, like, an image, or uh, but the flower was not satisfied to complete the preparations for her beauty in the shelter of her green chamber. She chose her colors with her greatest care. Okay, all this we have done. Sorry, just a moment. All right. Sorry about that. So now in this section 4, you see the continuation of the conversation happening between the king and the little prince. The planet was tiny. Over what could this king really rule? Sire, he said to him, I beg that you will excuse my asking you a question. I order you to ask me a question, the king hastened to assure him. Over what do you rule? Over everything, said the king with magnificent simplicity. Over everything. The king made a gesture which took in his planet the other planets and all the stars. Over all that, asked the little prince. Over all that, the king answered, for his rule was not only absolute, it was also universal. And the stars obey you. Certainly they do, the king said. They obey instantly. I do not permit insubordination. Insubordination means like anyone lower in rank, a subordinate, not agreeing with what you're saying. Or anyone who's not agreeing with the king is showing insubordination. Such power was a thing for the little prince to marvel at. If he had been master of such complete authority, he would have been able to watch the sunset not 44 times in one day, but 72 or even 100 or even 200 times without ever having to move his chair. And because he felt a bit sad as he remembered his little planet which he had forsaken, he plucked up his courage to ask the king a favor. I should like to see a sunset. Do me that kindness. Order the sun to set. If I ordered a general to fly from one flower to another like a butterfly, or to write a tragic drama, or to change himself into a seabird, and if the general did not carry out that order that he had received, which one of us do you think is it for? Would be in the wrong, the king demanded. The general or myself? You, said the little prince firmly. Exactly. One must require from each one the duty which each one can perform. The king, I have the right to require obedience because my orders are reasonable. Then my sunset, the little prince reminded him. You shall have your sunset, I shall command it, but according to my science of government, I shall wait until conditions are favorable. When will that be? That will be this evening about 20 minutes to 8, and you will see how well I am obeyed. The little prince yawned. He was regretting his lost sunset, and then too, he was already beginning to be a little bored. I have nothing more to do here, he said to the king. So I shall set out on my way again. Do not go, said the king, who was very proud of having a subject. Do not go, I will make you a minister. Minister of what? Minister of justice. But there is nobody here to judge. We do not know that, the king said to him. I have not yet made a complete tour of my kingdom. I'm very old. There is no room here for a carriage, and it tires me to walk. Oh, but I've looked already, said the little prince, turning around to give one more glance to the other side of the planet. Okay, then you shall judge yourself, the king answered. That is the most difficult thing of all. It is much more difficult to judge oneself than to judge others. Sorry. Okay, if you succeed in judging yourself rightly, then you are indeed a man of true wisdom. Yes, said the little prince, but I can judge myself anywhere. I don't need to live on this planet. Okay, I have good reason to believe that somewhere on my planet there is an old rat. I hear him at night. You can judge this old rat. From time to time you will condemn him to death. Thus life will depend on your justice. But you will pardon him on each occasion, for he must be treated thriftily. He's the only one we have. I do not like to condemn anyone to death, and now I think I'll go on my way, replied the little prince. No, said the king. But the little prince, having now completed his preparations for departure, had no wish to grieve the old monarch. If your majesty wishes to be promptly obeyed, he should be able to give me a reasonable order. He should be able, for example, to order me to be gone by the end of 1 minute. It seems to me that conditions are favorable. I made you my ambassador," the king called out hastily. He had a magnificent air of authority. "The grown-ups are very strange," the little prince said to himself as he continued on his journey. Okay, so now there are some of these words and some very simple exercises and these question answers. I want you to please try to attempt these, and then if you have any difficulty, then we can discuss that in the next class. So day after we will take up. Okay, so tomorrow the first class got missed because of some technical glitch, and tomorrow I'll try to take a class at 5 o'clock, the same time, so that we can cover up that chapter, and I'll be taking up this chapter, My Childhood, tomorrow. And I hope you all are studying hard. Your exams are just around the corner, and have a good evening, all of you.